The DMZ's very existence is a constant reminder of the uneasy truce. North Korean aggression was increasing in the 60s, and it was an ambush on November 2, 1966, that would mark the beginning of the undeclared Second Korean War.
Death in a ravine is the anniversary present from communist infiltrators to two Americans riding to a guard post in South Korea. It occurred 10 years and a day after the signing of the Korean truce.
The first series of incidents that began in 1962 were essentially small American units isolated by North Koreans and intentionally attacked to make the point that the demilitarized zone was no longer going to be a free area.
We took it very seriously when we went into the DMZ. When we passed through the center gate at the barrier fence, we locked and loaded.
4 years later, on November 2, 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson was in Seoul on a state visit. Just before daybreak, 7 Americans
of essentially an undeclared brushfire war that sputtered and raged across Korea.
During the 3 years from 1966 to 1969, firefights became so common that the DMZ was declared a war zone and soldiers were given combat pay. Unofficially known as the Second Korean War, thousands of American soldiers destined for the war in Vietnam were reassigned to the DMZ to reinforce the 18,000 troops already there.
Everybody in the company had orders cut off for Vietnam, and then they came back and reissued orders, and mine was when I was assigned to Korea. You know, I figured, well, I had it made since I was going to Korea.
We weren't going to Vietnam. The expression in those days was we dodged the bullet.
In April 1967, Curtis Noland was sent to Korea and assigned duty north of the Imjim River.
We were stationed about 1.5 miles from Panmunjom. There was a North Korean squad who had attacked a vehicle that was used to transport exchange soldiers changing shifts, and they had been ambushed. We heard the explosions when we were ready, and we took off.
That night, on April 14, 1968, 2 Americans and 2 Katusas were killed by North Korean infiltrators.
You see something like that and you just realize that could be you.
The next day, a Military Armistice Commission, or MAC, meeting was convened, and UN officers protested the murder. Once again, the North Koreans denied that it ever happened.
And this is hard for Americans to understand, who are accustomed to fair play and the concept of going into a courtroom and everybody tell the truth.
The increased infiltration and the rising number of soldiers killed greatly troubled General Charles H. Bonesteel III.
He made a couple of early decisions that to this day persist in the alliance and have been effective in stopping enemy infiltration and subversion.
A cyclone fence topped with razor wire was built along the 155-mile length of the DMZ. Outposts were equipped with night vision devices, floodlights, and sensors. Roving patrols were tripled. Crossing over the DMZ became much more difficult. But determined North Korean soldiers intent on violence still made the trip south. The North Koreans had agreed to a ceasefire and signed the armistice 15 years earlier. But Kim Il-sung continued using aggressive tactics to dominate South Korea with his communist regime. And in January 1968, he set his crosshairs on the leadership of South Korea.
The North Korean goal from 66 to 69 was stated by Kim Il-sung in October 1966, and that was to remove the U.S. presence from the peninsula and to create a popular uprising in the South that would reunify the peninsula.
Kim Il-sung's attempt to fuel an uprising was as daring as it was outrageous. On January 21, 1968, he sent a commando team across the DMZ on a covert killing mission.
Kim Il-sung's marching orders to the 31 commandos of the 124th Army were to infiltrate the Republic of Korea, go to the Blue House, and cut off the head of Park Chung-hee. Got within a half a mile of the palace and the Blue House, and almost did carry out their assassination.
They almost made it to the presidential palace, but they were discovered and a running gun battle exploded in Seoul, as they tried to make their way back to the north.
I've been informed that only 4 of the 31 North Koreans who attempted to assassinate President Park on January 21st now remain.
As they neared the DMZ, the U.S. 2nd Infantry Division and ROK soldiers intercepted the last 2 commandos. Not to be taken alive, they both placed hand grenades to their heads. One exploded, killing the man instantly. The other hand grenade malfunctioned. He was captured and later confessed to the entire plan.
We received the order to base around the Blue House to kill President Park Chung-hee inside the Blue House and shoot and kill the executive leaders under him.
The next day, an emergency MAC meeting was convened in response to the North Korean assassination attempt on President Park Chung-hee. On the second day of the meeting, the United Nations team was informed that North Korean naval vessels had encircled the USS Pueblo in international waters 12 miles off the coast of North Korea, further escalating the situation.
But we were fully confident, being an American vessel, that no one in their right mind would mess with us.
North Korea wanted a confrontation and claimed that the Pueblo had entered into North Korean waters to spy.
And it was part of a general campaign that was at that time going on also by the Chinese to show that the United States was a paper tiger.
They were very heavily armed. The PT boats, when they came in close to us, they had rocket launchers on their forward deck. Some of the tubes were uncovered on the torpedoes. Their guns were fully manned.
At 12:10 p.m. on January 23rd, the North Korean ships fired on the Pueblo.
And so it was the moment that they opened fire that everything changed. The first shots were aimed directly at the bridge. They weren't warning shots or anything else. They came to capture the ship and kill it if necessary.
The Pueblo was not armed for battle. Its armaments consisted of 2 50 caliber machine guns, which were no competition for 6 North Korean attack ships.
That's when Fireman Dwayne Hodges was killed, and a number of other people were badly injured. At that point, we realized that we're going to be captured. There's nobody coming to our aid.
The seizure of the Pueblo outraged the American public, and they demanded retaliation. President Johnson ordered part of the Pacific Fleet sitting off the coast of Vietnam to steam toward Korea, prepared for battle.
It was late January of 1968. The USS Pueblo had been seized by the North Koreans, and all of South Korea were all put on full alert.
In just 2 days, Kim Il-sung attempted to murder the president of South Korea, attacked and seized an American ship, killed 1 American sailor, and was now holding 84 others hostage. The United States maintained that the Pueblo was in international waters. The North Koreans insisted that the ship had illegally entered their territory and refused to release the crew or the ship.
As it turned out, the sailors of the Pueblo ended up spending 11 months in very harsh captivity in North Korea.
The North Koreans beat the crew if they did not confess to their crimes on tape.
Bob Hammond, he was one of the Marines on board. I think he was beaten for like 37 hours.
We used to hear the speakers when we'd be out in the DMZ. We would hear some of the Pueblo crew members calling us capitalist dogs. We called Captain Booker's speech a capitalist dog speech. We never took those things seriously that they said, and we never held it against them.